Hello, everyone. My name is Baylen here on Peaceful Prisons Podcast. With me today is Abby Martin
Hey guys.
and Chazidy Robinson. Welcome.
Hey, hey, hey.
Um, so good to see you. So glad to have you on. This is an important topic. I feel like of conversation centered around post-incarceration syndrome, right? And Chastity, I feel like you know everything. You're the mastermind. You kind of have the greatest grasp on what it is and what everyone's going through that experiences this. So go ahead and introduce yourself and let us know what you're working on these days.
Yes, so my name is Chazidy Robinson. I am from the foothills of West Virginia, but I am currently in Cincinnati, Ohio. I have been here for going on about 13 years, and I am a social justice, criminal justice advocate, and my heart and my passion. Just to being the voice of the voiceless,
Mm-hmm.
and the unheard, and focusing on the mental health of people that are incarcerated, formerly incarcerated, and their families, and how the trauma of incarceration just affects us all, and how we can truly raise awareness about post incarceration syndrome and what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's excellent. It's important work because I feel like majority of the public, most people probably don't recognize or understand the effect of incarceration and how it doesn't just affect those that are incarcerated. It extends to families, support systems, and even further. Would you care to get into that?
Yeah. So a lot of people say post incarceration syndrome. It
Hmm.
happened. Why is it called post incarceration syndrome? And it's called that because it's when we get to deal with it after. It's the after effect of it. But actually, it it's the traumas that happen well before prison.
Hmm.
Um, what we are finding. So I've been doing this research study for the last 4 years with the University of Cincinnati around post incarceration syndrome, and how I even got to this point of what mental health is and how it even affected you is because I was once married to a gentleman for some years, and we met in 2016. He was incarcerated, and I it was really my personal experience with incarceration, supporting him through 8.5 years of incarceration, and just having that direct experience, and just really understanding like what prison was, and being that closely impacted by it, like trying to figure out if the rest of the world knew that this was happening to people, and just talking and being on the journey with other family members, and people that I had met along the way, and just, the burden of incarceration, taking the phone calls, driving to visits, going through the whole visitation process, and being free but incarcerated at the same time, and not understanding what that was until he came home. And then as he was nearing to come home, it just this feeling of uncertainty of what do I do when he gets here, and that uneasy feeling that nobody was talking about. And I was going to these different conferences, being a part of different organizations and cohorts, but I wasn't hearing people telling me that successful part of reentry. Reentry, they talk about getting a job and being successful in secondary education, and and I was a part of those initiatives, but nobody was telling me when he steps into this house, how do we communicate with each other? How do I help him reintegrate into my house? Like, what do I do? What do I do? Because I've been in this house for 8.5 years by myself. What is that isolation period for me? What does that look like? And so when I began to research, I couldn't find anything. When I was asking people in these spaces, formerly incarcerated people, they didn't have answers, and they were worried too. And so I come up across uh, post incarceration syndrome, but there wasn't a lot about it. And so I was in this cohort for Columbia University, Women Transcending, and I was talking about it in our with our cohort sisters. And I met one of my cohort sisters. Her name is Gail Muhammad, and she was like, "You got to talk to me after, because I haven't heard anybody talk about this. I have to talk to you about Terrence Gorski." And so at the time he was living, and she was telling me about Terrence Gorski and all the work that he had been doing since like the 80s and 90s around post incarceration syndrome. And that's where I learned about him. And so she told me about him, and then I began to study about him and research about him and all the research he was doing, and it made sense to me. It was the only thing that made sense to me. And unfortunately, he passed away in 2021, 2022. And so I did I went to University of Cincinnati, and I did a speech about post-incarceration syndrome. And I just was just following in his work about, recidivism, and why people who were um, who were dealing with substance abuse disorder, and why they kept recidivizing, and why they kept following in these same habits and traits. And I'm like, but people who are coming home from incarceration, they do the same thing. Why people from coming home from incarceration, if you notice, um, a lot of people do, and I noticed my husband did it a lot too. When he would talk about things or he had ideas, he would always use synonyms, or he would always use like um oh shoot
Like a metaphor.
a metaphor. Yes. And it yeah. Yes. Or it would always be like fear, FEAR, and it would, and you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, yeah.
Everybody does it, and I was just like, why does everybody do that? And even still to this day, anybody that I meet, they can have a program, and it'll be like a metaphor, and I'm like, that is so universal. I mean, even people that I've met in different countries that have been to prison, they do this. And so I would just notice these things, and I'm like, you know what? Everybody suffers from this. And so that's how the research study came about. And so as we were doing this study with people, and we did a focus group for a year, and we did it with formerly incarcerated people, their families, their children, their moms, their dads, and we just started developing these tools to try to figure out, like, how do we help people, like, how can we create things to where we could communicate with people to help them reintegrate back into their homes. Forget society. We want to be able to help people learn how to communicate in their houses with each other, to be able to just walk around in your home and feel comfortable being in your home, because for several years you had to eat, sleep, poop, and do things in one segregated space. How can you reacclimate back into your house and be comfortable in your house and be able to teach people how to do that, and help them understand that they have this thing called PICS? Because what we're finding is telling somebody formerly incarcerated that they even have this and they accept it.
Hmm.
That's what
Yeah,
we're
it's
struggling with. Yeah,
absolutely. I
yeah.
feel like if when you describe post incarceration syndrome, and you describe the symptoms, and the root of it, and how it behaves, or how we behave, when we're going through it, it's scary, and it's relatable, and it's instantly recognizable when you describe it. Even if you're talking to friends and family members, they still instantly recognize, oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm going through. What are some of the feelings? What are some of the, like, symptoms? What are some of the, like, actions that people go through experiencing
So
this?
there, yeah. So there are five clusters of post incarceration syndrome. So institutionalized personality traits, um, post traumatic stress disorder (PTSD). We know that is um, the first common thing that when you go to therapists that they want to tell you that you have, and that's it. They want to tell you, oh, you have
Mm.
PTSD. That's what's wrong with you. No,
Right.
that's one of the five. Okay.
Okay.
And antisocial personality traits. And so this one is like the main one that people struggle with, that they don't, that you can relate to the most, is because what it is developed as a coping response to institutional abuse and predatory prison culture. And
Mm.
what it is with antisocial personality traits, what it is it's like, it's kind of like code switching. So like with your personality traits, it's like you, so like for instance, and I always refer back to my ex-husband because this is it's just relatable for me to be able to explain it to people.
Mm.
So if I do it often, just stop me, because it's just my experience. So
Right.
like with him, or for us, um I didn't understand. um he wanted to love me. He
Mm.
absolutely did. Okay.
Mm.
So when he was inside prison,
Mm.
he could talk to me um calmly. He could he could he was relatable to me. He could understand me. He was very poised. He was very, I mean, we had the best relationship ever. That
Mhm.
personality of him, that was my husband. And
Yeah.
we had the best conversations, business plans, business ideas. We could do it. You know why?
Mm.
Because in there, he had structure. He could think clearly, and his personality, he could, because that environment he could acclimate in, right?
Mm.
That those personality that personality trait, we could do that there. But
Mhm.
when he stepped out of there and he was here in this house, he was violent. He was he gaslit me. We could not understand each other. It was two different people. And
Mm.
I was like, who am I talking to today? Who would
Right.
you like for me to speak to? Because this environment, he could not he couldn't think. He couldn't get his thoughts together. He couldn't adjust. Why? Because in this environment there were too many things for his mind to be able to focus on. He couldn't
Right.
focus. He couldn't he he had his tunnel vision wasn't, he couldn't, he didn't have that
Mm.
structure. So that
Yeah.
personality of this person was just kind of all over the place. You understand what I mean? So those, he had to switch into, like, it was like that personality was over here. And then when
Mm.
he would go literally into the bedroom and shut the door, he could get back to that person and he could
Mm.
talk to me. You know why? Because now he could isolate himself again.
Mm.
So now he's back to that personality of the person. Because
Okay.
now he's back to, he's in that space, he's in that bubble, and
Mm.
now that, in his, that state of mind, he's back into that personality of a person. If he
Mm.
smoked weed, because now here comes the substance abuse disorder, the fifth part. If he's
Mm.
smoking weed, now that psychological personality of that person. So that
Mm.
personality trait part of it, that's one stage of it. Another stage of it is the substance abuse disorder. Some people, they have to, you have to be medicated. You do. Some people just have to, and it's okay. Whatever that is for you, that is for you. And then social sensory deprivation syndrome is caused by prolonged exposure to solitary confinement that radically restricts social contact or sensory stimulation. Um, just not having that human touch, or just that, just being, um is what it's exactly what it states.
Right.
Social
Put in
security
solitary
deprivation,
confinement, you're cut off
or
from everyone.
you're
And
cut off
and
from everyone.
I feel like a lot
Um,
of people have been through that since COVID too, all the lockdowns.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times people, what we are finding through the research is when we're given that survey, we're able to tell you what level of pics that you have, if you're a one, two, three, four, or five, right?
Hmm.
Because some people don't have it as a severity as others, because it depends on what level of facility you were in too. If you were in a low level to a supermax,
Hmm.
if some people were in for 10 to 40 years, if some people were in solitary confinement for a certain amount of years, or it just depends on how many years that you spent incarcerated. That has a lot to do with it too. If you had visitation, if you didn't have visitation, if you had a
Right.
support system, if you didn't have a support system, because everybody's prison experience wasn't the same,
Right.
right? Um, Everybody's prison experience wasn't as hard as others. Although everybody's prison experience was a prison experience, right? Because prison
Hmm.
wasn't easy at all,
Hmm.
in no way, shape, or form. Because either way, it was traumatic because of what you heard, what you saw, what you smelled, right?
Hmm.
All five senses were stimulated in a traumatic way. All five senses, you know. Even for your loved ones. So let
Yeah.
me give it to you in a perspective of that. So I didn't know when the alarms were going off. I used to ask him, "What is that? Why do I keep hearing those alarms going off?" And for a long time, he wouldn't tell me. He would
Huh.
not tell me. And it just aggravated me one day to where he just told me, "Somebody is getting stabbed, Chastity."
Oh,
And I was just like, "Oh my God." And
wow.
so ever since then, like, after I would hear them go off, I would just sit in silence, because for me, I would just have to take a moment of silence for whoever was being harmed in that moment,
Hmm.
right? Because it was a moment of solidarity for me, no matter who it was or what happened. That had nothing to do with me, but I just would have to take a moment of silence for that person, because I didn't know
Yeah.
if they made it out alive. I just knew somebody was being harmed, right?
Hmm.
So now when I hear an alarm, no matter where I'm at, it triggers me. Okay, so I'm triggered by alarms. Um, and then he would just continue a conversation like
Yeah.
it was
Like
nothing,
like
and I'm
nothing
like,
happened.
dude,
Yeah.
like nothing's happening.
Hmm.
And then in my mind, I'm like, are you watching this? Are you looking at it?
Yeah.
Right? I'm having all these thoughts in my head. Do you see it? Are you watching it? Are you, like,
Yeah. Are
can
you
you?
safe?
Are you safe? Are you okay? Like,
Yeah.
what's happening, you know?
Hmm.
And so now all these thoughts are in my head, um, from the standpoint of someone that is on the other end of the phone. When we don't hear from you, we go through trauma response. Are they in the hole? Did something happen to them? Do we need to call the prison? We have a whole thing that we go through as your family members.
Hmm.
We have a whole thing we go through.
Yeah.
When a day goes by and we don't hear from you, we panic. We there's this pit in the bottom of our stomach that we pray that we don't get, that when the phone rings, we hope it's you. We hope it's not that phone call, to say that you're not coming home. You know, that military knock at the door, it could be us at any given time. So uh, we go through that every day. Um, so when he did come home, even to this day, I'm in a new relationship, right? I have a problem with calling him
Ah,
on the phone, because
okay.
I didn't have that option for almost a decade.
Hmm.
So we are having problems with communication. He's like, Chastity, you know that any given time you can call me, and I'm like, I know, but I
I sort of know.
you know what I mean? And so I text him a lot,
Okay.
because I'm not comfortable with just calling him And I fight with myself every single day just to call, you know. So
So
there's still
go ahead.
these things that I'm fighting with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's some long-term effects to this. There's lasting effects to this impact, and it's not just on those incarcerated, but their families and their friends,
Yes.
support groups. Um, is this like a lifelong effect where someone's just stuck with this forever, or is this something that we can like work through and heal and process somehow?
Yes. So we are developing things to where we're going to work through that because we're not going to be stuck with this for the rest of our lives. No.
Hmm.
No, we're not going to let this win and we're not going to let this beat us, right? Um the traumas of incarceration it's not forever. This is not a death sentence, but it is prevalent. It is here, right?
Hmm.
And so recognizing it is the first step. Saying
Yeah.
that it is real is the first step, and advocating for it and getting it deemed as it a real disorder, because it is
Mm.
real. PICS is real. It is a real thing. That is our first step.
Mhm.
Raising the awareness around it is our first step. Getting the APA to say, yes, this is a thing,
Mhm.
is the first step. And the things that we are doing is we are getting, all the different colleges and universities to adopt our research,
Mhm.
getting all of our brothers and sisters in this fight to take the survey. That's very, very important, is getting folks to take the survey, because once we get the colleges and universities to adopt the research, we get people to take the survey. Okay, so if the college and universities are adopting the research, everybody's taking the survey. Well, guess who's studying it?
Mhm.
All these people that are going in and that they are mental health professionals, they're studying you. So
Mhm.
now that when they're going out into their profession, now they know what this is. They're becoming more relatable to what PICS is. And when you go to get a therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, or social workers are going into the field, they know exactly what it is going into the field. So now that when you go get that mental health help, they understand it, because right now that's the problem. That's what we're hearing. I'm going to get therapy, but they don't understand me. Okay, so guess
Mhm.
what? We're gonna fix that issue. We're gonna get ahead of it. So we're gonna create more professionals that are relatable in this way. Now that's one way that we're doing it. We're gonna create it on our own. Now that we're
Mhm.
doing that, we're also asking we're also asking different organizations to host picnics. And
Yeah.
what those are is you can host these 2-hour sessions and then a 6-week course on the back end. And so
Mm.
what happens is you host these 2-hour sessions and you allow people to come in, and then they're able to talk. They're 2-hour support groups, and they're able to talk. And we will give you everything that you need to be able to host these 2-hour sessions. And with these 2-hour sessions, they can come in, they can talk about what their experience is, and then we'll give you a guide to be able to do like these 6-week sessions.
Mhm.
In that, you will be able to get case management, and they will be able to get a therapist.
Mm.
And
That's
then they can go
incredible.
through these 6-week courses. And
Yeah.
it's all about pigs.
Good.
All about pigs. So what we can do is through that, we can gather data, and that when we petition the APA, we can say, look, check this out. We got in Milwaukee, we got hundreds of people up there that's doing our picnics and they're taking our 6-week courses. We got people in California, we got people in Ohio, we got all these hubs set up all over the country, because we don't want the APA. We don't want to go to the APA. We want them to come to us, because now what's happening is recidivism rate has been eliminated. Forget reducing it. We want to
Mm.
eliminate it, because we want to say that this works. Because if people are getting the mental health help that they need, because that's why people are going back to prison, because they're coming out and they can't cope, because they are psychologically okay. Think about it. When you got out of prison, you had all these expectations set on you. right? But if you got out and somebody told you, okay, you've been locked down for X amount of years, and nobody told you how to get on the bus, they just told you get on the bus. But you didn't ride a bus in prison, but they told you to get on the bus and go get a job. But these two things they never taught you how to do, but they want you to do it, and you're expected to do it. Well, how am I supposed to do it? But they didn't give you the tools to be able to come out here to do this stuff.
Hmm.
That would really overwhelm you
Oh yeah.
extremely. So I'd rather just go back to prison because I know how to function there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But through this, we want to catch people the first 90 days when they come out. We
Okay.
get them in our picnic sessions within that first 90 days. We're going to help you mentally. And within that 6 weeks and that first 90 days and go through that 6 week course, we're going to help you with that. We're going to help
Hmm.
you with that. And we're
Yeah.
going to teach you. We're going to show you. And mentally, we get you right here to help you be able to say, okay, I won't be overwhelmed learning how to get on the bus.
Hmm.
Because the first thing somebody say when they come home, oh, I don't need to learn how to communicate. I just want to be able to learn how to talk to somebody. Well, that is communication.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so we want to be able to help you to be able to do that. And through the research, we have built those tools to be able to help you to do that. You know,
Hmm.
I just want to be able to help people understand that one, you do have a problem. It's okay. You got a
Hmm.
problem. We all do. We got problems even not going to prison. I ain't been in prison and I got problems, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
It's
just being
just,
able to say it's okay.
yeah, so important, because I feel like recognizing and just identifying the real issue is the biggest step. Like, I hate to use a metaphor, but like, you don't want to go to a doctor and get treated for a headache when there's something much worse going on, right? It's not going to help, you know?
Yeah.
So we're trying to find the root. We're trying to find the actual issue. And
Yeah.
it's real. It affects so many people. So the more people we can identify and diagnose these symptoms and this disorder, it's important. And then, uh, medical centers, colleges, institutions, universities will get on board, and more people will start studying. It becomes more and more of a regular thing. It becomes
Yeah.
more, just accepted and just real.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it
it's
does
such
seem to be everywhere. I mean,
yeah.
I take a look at my loved ones who were formerly incarcerated and I share time with them and experience and even if they've been out for years and you start talking about prison, their body changes, the way they sit
Mm,
changes, the words they use, their tone of voice changes. I mean, it's a physical, visceral reaction. And then as the loved one, I'm like, what just happened? Like, what's going on in your body right now? And they're like, nothing. You know, like, and it wasn't until I learned about PICS and I could be like, oh yeah, like that's what's happening. You know, that's what's
mm,
happening. And now we have language, we can talk about this. I can try to
yeah.
be a safer person. You know, they can be a safer person to explain what's going on. Uh, it's even if you don't know the words, it's happening, and it's so clear that it's going on.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's real.
Where do you see this going next? Like, what are you working on these days? You're just like, these picnics are incredible. Is there a way to just expand this to more people? Like you said, taking the survey.
Yeah. So the picnics is our main focus. Over the next 5 years, we want to spread this all over the country and
Hmm.
just expand on it, like flesh it out, make it bigger, larger, better, more streamlined and easier for everybody, and just easier for everybody to be able to do, you know,
Yeah.
and just be able to make these hubs just pop up everywhere. You
Hmm.
know, that's just where we are and what we want to do. You know, just make this the research grow, and get more people to just lock in with that and just pics be a disorder. Really,
Hmm.
that's just
Have you
that's just
been
where your focus is.
What kind of feedback have you been getting from those that are being diagnosed or recognizing this is a real thing, and they can bring it to the therapist or counselor and get it out and try and explain? What kind of feedback have you been getting from family and support systems?
We've had really, really good feedback. Really,
Mm,
really great feedback. People are very, very receptive. We had some people, say, no, we don't want this. And I mean, it's just real. People say, no, we don't want another label. We don't want
wow.
another label on us. And what we say to that, it's not a label. It's a disorder. It's like if it you accept like you accept PTSD, you accept bipolar disorder, you accept that.
Yeah.
You got to accept this. I mean, you don't
Hmm.
have to. I mean, if you go to the doctor and he diagnose you with cancer, you can accept it or you don't. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
But this is a thing to be able, when you cannot get insurance, this is a way for you to say, oh no, I have this. Now you have to give me insurance
Mm,
because I have this disorder. You understand what I'm
yeah.
saying? Or if you are trying to get, Social Security benefits. Oh, no, I have this, and now you have to give me this because I have this, right? And it's because of the system that has created this in me is because I have this. And so it's really about an accountability piece, right?
Uh,
Because at the end of the day, it's like, um, the Department of Corrections has to be accountable. And
mhm,
it's about us finally holding them accountable for the harm and the trauma that they've created, right?
mhm,
So in 2023, yeah, last year, during COVID, we were pushing for them to put body cameras on all of our correctional officers in Ohio, and we
mhm.
won. We made the state of Ohio push out over $65 million to do it.
Wow.
This is why I kind of went into mental health because they kind of
That's
hate me here.
incredible.
Yeah.
So,
That is an incredible
um,
accomplishment.
Yeah, holy
and
cow.
so we pushed it out of them, and so they put them on all of our correctional officers, all of our parole officers, and so we have them now. And in that, the thing about that is accountability, right? You need to we got to hold them accountable for the things that they do. And we wouldn't have needed that if we didn't feel like you were using excessive use of force. And even in that, people were saying that will never happen, Chastity, because they're not going to put body cameras on the correctional officers. That's just too big. That's not going to happen. Yes, it will. If you just raise your voice big enough, it'll happen.
Mhm.
So, this is what I say to this. People are telling me, Chastity, this will never happen. Yes, it will if we come together and we raise our voices for something that we need. Yes, it will. But we have to come together, right? And it's not about who did it first, or it's not about recognizing some one entity, because I'm just a person, right? I'm just somebody who feels like there's a need. I just want to see the need happen. I don't care how it happens because I care about Abby. I care about Baylen. I care about your mom. I care about your dad. I care about your future children if you decide to have them. I care about the people that had to go through this, right? I care about, I even care about the people who caused the harm.
Mhm.
Let me go a little bit deeper for you
Yeah.
because this is how my mind thinks. Care about the people that cause the harm, because you have to be a really twisted person in your mind to go every single day and put on that uniform and wake up and come to work to be a demented, twisted person to cause harm to somebody the way that you do. Do you understand where I'm coming from? You
Absolutely.
do. So you
Yeah.
mentally something has to be wrong with you to
Mhm.
cause that kind of trauma and harm to me and get
Mhm.
paid for it.
Mhm. Absolutely.
You
So,
do.
I agree. I
what
agree.
would you say? because while I don't think anybody here agrees with this thought, the thought does exist in the
Yeah.
world. Some people think that, prisons aren't supposed to be a hotel. If you committed a crime, you are supposed to be punished, and that's not supposed to look pretty. And the thought might even be you deserve whatever happens to you. How do we start that conversation and overcome those thoughts that some folks might have?
I like being in conversation in rooms with people like them. Matter of fact, I would much rather be in a room full of those kind of people than a room full of people that agree with me. Because my thought on that is, I would rather talk to a room full of people like them to give them this information, because it's all about perspective. Because if I give you this and you choose not to do something with it, then that's on you.
Mhm.
Because there's one thing about it, is they're going to go and they're going to talk about it. That's one thing that they're going to do, and it's going to make them think. Because this is one thing I learned about this project. There's been students from India, there's been students, international students, there's been students all over that's worked on this project, that it has totally changed their perspective about people in prison.
Mhm.
Totally changed it. And so what we have to do is we have to be able to tell the stories. But it relies on y'all to tell your story. And you have to be able to be comfortable in saying what your experience was.
Mhm.
You all have to tell your story. You got to come out of your shell and you have to tell your story. You have to tell what happened to you. That's the problem that we're having. You have to tell it, because there's a lot of shame about incarceration. There's a lot of shame about what you seen, about what you saw, and about what you did. And until you come out and you tell it exactly the way it happened,
Yeah.
we'll never know.
Yeah.
That's just the truth about it all. Because them people will never know what happened to you until you tell the story
Mhm.
the
Yeah,
way it happened.
it's impossible to help until you can identify what you need to do to help, right? Or what
Yeah,
areas need improvement or what areas need more attention, right?
yeah,
I feel like that's what this is all about is
yeah,
identifying that and recognizing the seriousness and the impact that incarceration has on society, on people,
yeah,
individuals and family members and loved ones, you know.
yeah.
Uh,
I had a vision of, and I'm going to do it as soon as I find somebody that will help me bring this to life. I had a vision. I was talking to a gentleman. He's very successful. He did 2 decades in prison, but he's very successful now. Um, but he told me, he said, after all the lights go off, I still live in hell.
mm,
I still hear the sounds. I still smell the smell. But after the lights go off, I still live in hell.
mm,
And I wanted to do this. I wanted to do like this like a PSA of him in his suit, and like a voiceover of like the crowd cheering, and him on stage, and him just in the light, and everybody just seeing this successful guy after prison, and then the lights go off, and
mm,
him sitting with his shirt off, and the like a spotlight come down on him, and him with the voiceover, and then the chains hitting, and the voices and all the sounds that he hears,
mm,
and him having a moment of peace,
mm.
and people can see what's really in his head and what he's really dealing with, the reality of what you feel when nobody is listening, and when all the cheers stop and everything in the background, when the lights go off, right? Because y'all know what that is.
Yeah.
You know what that is. You know what that is, right? That's what everybody needs to see. And we need to do, I want to do like 4, 5, 6 of those. And we
Mhm.
do. And so that's how we do this, y'all. Like, we have to bring this to that kind of light. and we do like a video of some sort, and so we can show people like this is what it's doing to us, right?
Yeah.
And we show it, and we get let people truly see, like, when the lights go off, yeah, I sit in my room and I cry about this, and
Hmm.
I'm still dealing with this. This is who Abby is, and this is who Chastity is, and when the lights go
Yeah.
off, I'm self isolating. Yeah,
Yeah.
my phone
It's
stays on silent because I can't stand to hear it ring. I don't
right.
go through metal detectors because it trips me out because I still think I'm going through visitation. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, I don't eat certain food. I hate a cheeseburger. Because, listen, them things at visitation, getting them out of that vending machine really sucks. Like,
Yeah. Mm.
I mean, like, I can just, the things that trigger me, like, it's just like, yeah,
Mm.
uh huh,
Yeah, it's real. It's real, and
it's real.
it impacts so many people. To this day, I still have a real issue around eating sliced turkey. I can't. I have a hard time eating turkey these days because it was really bad for a long time, and that was all there was. We had to eat that. So now it's tough, you know. And you're so right about sharing stories and sharing the truth. That's how we get to the bottom of it. That's how we understand each other, right? You're not going to be able to understand me if I don't let you in a little bit and show you, you know, what's going on behind the scenes. And I remember when I took to the PIC survey, I just kept thinking on every question, yep, 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 all these things apply. And just to have it all in one organized uh, place where I could see it and understand it better. That helps so much, you know, to be able to say, oh, okay, this is what I'm going through. This is actually relatable to someone else, and other people can understand this and work on it. It helps so much. It's such a relief to be able to come to that realization.
Yeah. Abby, I see your, I can see, I can see your brain. I can, no, I really can. And I know this is y'all's interview, but I really would like to know, like, what you're thinking. Like, I really would. Like, I would really like to know, because I would just like to know what you're thinking.
Let's hear it.
I was at this moment, I was currently thinking about how grateful I am that you are also approaching the loved ones aspect.
Hmm.
Because the feeling of living on a trap door is so real, right? Like perpetually, whether you're loving somebody who's currently incarcerated or formerly incarcerated, the trap door and the lack of communication that makes that door wobble is so strong and so real. And and how scary it is to not only live on the trapdoor, but how scary it is to start opening those doors of communication. Because, kind of when you shared that your husband was like, oh yeah, somebody's getting stabbed. I feel like on both ends, there's a lot of protecting your loved ones and a lot of thinking that your loved ones might not be able to handle something or maybe just straight up not being able to handle it, right? Like some stories and experiences that I've heard, I'm like, oh no, I actually can't. I cannot listen to this. And knowing yourself well enough to know that you need to not hear that experience, but also how do you make sure you're a safe space for people to share with you and grow and deepen those bonds? All of that seems so um, programmed into you, and how your research can help alleviate so much of that discord and confusion amongst each other and families.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I think that, just weaving it in together to where you're not separating it, you know what I mean? Because we did this together, you know,
Yeah.
and making that support system, whatever that looked like, whatever it looked like. Stepping out of that gate together and working through it together. And even that guy or that girl that's coming out into that relationship, because one, domestic violence is real. Let's start there. It is real. Whether it is a guy coming into a relationship with a girl or a woman that is coming out into a relationship with a man, whatever that looks like, it is very real. So, or if you're coming out into, some of these people are coming home to elderly parents, you know, and so even in that, these parents are looking for their children,
Mm-hmm.
their young children, and that's not what they're coming home to. You know what I mean? And so we want to work with these families well before they come home to prepare them for who is coming home, you know, and prepare them for what what they need to be looking for, and not set expectations so high that when their person is coming home, it's like set new expectations, right? For the new person that you are receiving home and the new life that you are about to embark on, you know. And so that whenever you do receive your person home, that you are not being let down for something that you expected 20 years ago, because that person is gone.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
And
Let's focus on reality.
I
you
think
know.
you are so accurate. I mean, I think the expectation is exactly that, right? Like, I know I certainly am not the same person I was 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And and my brother's not the same person, my mother, all these people who have never been to prison, they are not the same people. I mean,
Yeah.
we were punk kids, 20 years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
But the expectation of receiving a loved one home that is self, provoked is that you are coming home from prison, and yeah, you are the same person. You are the same person that I left when I put you, when I walked you into prison.
Yeah.
And and that's so untrue and detrimental, but
Yeah.
it's so hard to overcome. When I last saw you, you were 20 years old. You might be
Yeah.
40 now.
Yeah.
But I still see you as a 20-year-old, and that's who I love, and that's who I want to be with,
Yeah.
and it's so hard to re-meet people and
Yes.
without holding them to what you used to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I think it's just important to realize that we are in it together, you know. We can
Mm.
go through it together. We can get out and heal together too, you
Yeah.
know. And the first step, like we said, is identifying, recognizing the issue for what it is, the reality of it, that it is a disorder and it affects so many people. I'd love to keep talking and get more into this. So we should have another conversation on this because there's so much more to say around this topic. Thank you for coming on with us, Chastity. Thank you, Abby.
So thank you.
Appreciate having you both here and just getting into the important subjects. So yeah, thank you for your time. I
Absolutely.
appreciate your insight and knowledge. It's been amazing having you on. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Anytime.
All right. Y'all have a good day. Appreciate your time.